The Galactic Council had done something that many believed was impossible. After 17 failed missions and the loss of 4 entire fleets, they had finally captured a living Class 14 predator. They called it a. It was a creature made of pure nightmare, something that existed between dimensions, something that should not exist at all. Admiral Telos stood behind 3 layers of protective barriers and watched the beast through reinforced glass. He was a tall creature with compound eyes that showed his fear clearly. His antennae trembled as the thrashed inside its containment field. The creature's form kept changing. Sometimes it looked like a mass of teeth and shadow. Sometimes it became something worse, something that hurt the mind to look at directly. "It killed 200 of my crew while we brought it here," Telos said to the council representatives who watched through holographic screens. "We lost our containment specialists on day 3. The psychic dampeners burn out every 6 hours. We cannot keep replacing them." Was an ancient being made of living crystal. She hummed with deep concern. "The creature cannot stay contained forever. Our calculations show we have 42 standard cycles before total containment failure." "Then we kill it," said General. He was a reptilian warrior whose species had never run from any fight in their entire history. "We destroy it before it destroys us." Admiral Telos made a sound like static. "We have tried. It regenerates, it adapts, it learns from every attack." His antennae drooped low, showing his exhaustion. "We have used plasma weapons. We have tried void freezing. We attempted dimensional collapse. We even tried feeding it to a black hole." "And," General demanded, "it ate the black hole." The council fell silent. Every representative from every corner of the galaxy had no words. A Class 14 predator was beyond their science. It was beyond their weapons. It was beyond anything they had ever faced. It was extinction given form, and they had brought it onto their most important ship. For a long moment, nobody spoke, then made the suggestion that would change everything. "What about the humans?" Several council members made sounds of confusion. The humans were new to galactic civilization. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. Their planet was small, their technology was primitive compared to most species, and they were embarrassingly short. "The humans," General laughed, a harsh barking sound. "What could humans possibly do against a Class 14 predator? They are barely above animals themselves." "Perhaps that is exactly why we should ask them," replied calmly. "Humans evolved on a death world. Their planet is covered with predators. They have spent their entire existence learning to live alongside dangerous creatures. They have unusual methods." Admiral Telos considered this. He had read the reports about Earth. It was a planet where the water could kill you, where the weather could kill you, where the plants and animals actively tried to kill you every single day. And somehow, humans had not only survived there, they had thrived. They had tamed predators. They had turned wolves into pets. They had learned to swim in waters filled with sharks. "Contact Earth," Admiral Telos finally said. "Request a specialist." Park was having a very bad week. The 34-year-old had been taken from his apartment in Seoul in the middle of the night. One moment he was sleeping peacefully, dreaming about his research project. The next moment, a bright light filled his room, and he woke up on an alien spaceship wearing clothes that did not fit properly. The Galactic Council called it emergency consultation protocols, called it kidnapping. Now he sat in a small white room aboard the alien vessel. The food they gave him tasted like cardboard mixed with something unpleasant. The clothes they provided were uncomfortable. And worst of all, he had no idea if anyone was feeding his cat Machi back home. The door did not open like a normal door. It simply dissolved into nothing. These aliens had built ships that could cross galaxies, but they had apparently never invented hinges. A small creature with very large eyes shuffled into the room. This was Pip, the alien assigned to watch over. "The Council requests your presence," Pip announced. The translator device made his voice sound musical. There is a matter of great importance. Looked up from his terrible meal. More important than explaining why you abducted me from my apartment at 3 in the morning. Yes, Pip said without any hesitation. Significantly more important. He paused for a moment. You were the nearest available human with your qualifications. Lucky me. 20 minutes later, stood before the holographic council. He had shoved his hands into his pockets, which the alien tailors had only added to his uniform after he complained 7 times. Aliens, it seemed, did not understand pockets. Admiral Telos explained everything. The 17 failed missions, the 4 destroyed fleets, the 200 dead crew members, the failed attempts to kill it, the containment that was slowly failing. Listened carefully. He nodded occasionally. He asked a few questions about the creature's behavior patterns, and when Admiral Telos finished his explanation, asked the only question that really mattered. Have you tried talking to it? 37 alien species stared at him. Their expressions showed disbelief, horror, confusion. Some of them looked at like he had lost his mind completely. It is a Class 14 predator, Admiral Telos finally managed to say. It does not communicate, it only consumes, it only destroys. Everything communicates, said simply. His voice was calm, as if he was explaining something obvious to a child. Every living thing has some way of expressing itself, some way of showing what it wants or needs. Have you actually tried to understand it, or have you only tried to contain it and kill it? We have tried to survive it, Admiral Telos replied. That has been difficult enough. Maybe that's the problem, scratched his chin thoughtfully. You approach it as a threat so it responds as a threat. You attack it so it attacks back. You fear it so it has reason to be feared. What are you suggesting? Asked, her crystalline body chiming with curiosity. I'm suggesting that maybe you've been speaking a language this creature doesn't understand. Violence, force, containment, shrugged. On Earth, we learned a long time ago that not every predator responds to aggression. Sometimes the most dangerous creatures can be reached through patience, through understanding, through communication. You believe you can communicate with a Class 14 predator? General's voice dripped with disbelief. A creature that has killed thousands, a creature that ate a black hole. I don't know, admitted honestly, but I'd like to try. He looked around at the council, meeting as many eyes as he could. What do you have to lose? You've already tried everything else. Your containment is failing. Your weapons don't work. Your science has no answers. He smiled, a tired but genuine expression. Maybe it's time to try something different. Maybe it's time to try the human way. Admiral Telos looked at General. Around the council chamber, representatives exchanged glances of uncertainty. I would like to see the creature, said. Can you arrange that? Admiral Telos's antennae twitched. You wish to observe the directly? Yes. That is extremely dangerous. Even behind the barriers, being near it causes psychological damage. Some of our strongest warriors have gone mad simply from looking at it too long. Nodded slowly. I understand the risks, but I cannot help you if I cannot see what I am dealing with. He paused. On Earth, we have a saying, you cannot tame what you do not understand, and you cannot understand what you refuse to look at. After a long moment of silence, Admiral Telos made his decision. Very well, human. I will take you to the containment bay. His compound eyes reflected something that might have been hope, or might have been the belief that he was about to watch a human die in a very unpleasant way. May your strange human gods protect you. Smiled again. I'm not very religious, Admiral, but I appreciate the thought. He followed the Admiral out of the council chamber, walking calmly toward the creature that had killed fleets, eaten a black hole, and terrified an entire galaxy. He was about to meet a nightmare face to face. The containment bay was the most frightening place Park had ever seen. Warning signs covered every wall. They were written in 16 different alien languages, all saying the same thing: danger, death, stay away. Force fields hummed with so much power that could feel his teeth vibrating. Armed guards stood at every corner, holding weapons that could crack a moon in half. Most of them looked like they wanted to be anywhere else in the universe. And at the center of it all, floating in overlapping fields of energy, was the had studied alien life forms for 12 years. He had seen creatures that broke every rule of biology. He had observed entities that existed as living mathematical equations. He had watched beings made of pure energy that sang in colors humans had no names for. He thought he was prepared for anything. He was wrong. That was wrong in a way that hurt to look at. It existed in too many dimensions at the same time. Its form kept bleeding into realities that should not overlap. When looked at it, his brain tried to make sense of what he was seeing. It showed him teeth, claws, eyes, but he knew these were just his mind's desperate attempts to understand something that could not be understood. "It is magnificent," whispered. Admiral Telos made a choking sound. "Magnificent. It is a monster." "Monsters are just creatures we do not understand yet." Moved closer to the outer barrier. Every alarm in the facility began screaming warnings. Red lights flashed everywhere, but ignored them all. He was focused entirely on the creature. He watched it for a long time. Minutes passed. The thrashed and shifted, its form constantly changing, but noticed something that the aliens had missed. "It's scared," he said. Admiral Telos made the static sound again. "It has killed over 8,000 sentient beings in the past month alone. It is not scared. It is deadly." Scared things kill the most. Did not look away from the creature. "Look at it carefully, Admiral. Really look. It is not hunting. It is not trying to attack. It is cornered. Everything you have thrown at it, the weapons, the traps, the containment fields, you have been attacking it without stopping. You have given it no choice but to fight back. Because it is a threat. Because you made it one." Finally turned to face the Admiral. His expression was serious but not afraid. "I need you to do something for me. I need you to lower the containment barriers." Every guard in the room raised their weapons. Admiral Telos's antennae stood straight up in shock. "That is suicide," the Admiral said firmly. "You will die within seconds." "Maybe," agreed calmly, "but I do not think so." "Why not?" "Because I have been watching it very carefully, and I have noticed something interesting," pointed toward the Every time the containment fields pulse with extra power, the creature does not attack the barriers. It retreats. It makes itself smaller. That is not aggressive behavior. That is defensive behavior. Admiral Telos stared at the creature. He had watched it for weeks, and he had never noticed this pattern. "You observed this in just a few minutes." "I observed it because I was looking for it. You were looking for threats. I was looking for communication." 3 days later, was still watching the He had set up a small observation station near the containment bay. He slept there. He ate there. He spent every waking moment studying the creature's behavior, writing notes, and thinking very carefully. The council had sent him a partner. Her name was, and she was a 40-year-old animal behaviorist who had spent 20 years working with Earth's most dangerous predators. She had worked with tigers. She had trained wolves. She had once spent 6 months living with a pack of wild dogs in Africa. When she received message asking for help, she had come immediately. Now she sat beside him in the observation room, watching footage of on a holographic display. Looked exhausted. Dark circles had formed under his eyes. He was drinking coffee, actual Earth coffee, which meant he had somehow convinced the aliens to get it for him. "You look terrible," said. "I have been studying a living nightmare for 72 hours straight. You look annoyingly refreshed." "I slept on the flight," settled into her chair and studied the footage. "So tell me what you have found, a Class 14 predator. What makes it special?" Pulled up a new display showing behavior patterns and movement analysis. The Galactic Council classifies predators on a scale of 1 to 15. Class 15 is theoretical, a predator capable of consuming entire galaxies. Class 14 is the highest level ever actually observed. They have only recorded 3 Class 14 predators in all of galactic history. The other 2 were killed by sacrificing entire planets. And this one is different. This one is very different, pointed to a specific moment in the footage. Watch here. Every time the containment fields pulse with extra power, the creature does not attack. It retreats. It makes itself smaller. Leaned forward, her eyes sharp. Defensive posturing. It is protecting itself, not hunting. Exactly. This is not an apex predator on the hunt. This is a creature in survival mode. Switch to another recording. And look here. When the guards change shifts, there is a 90-second window where the energy levels change slightly. Watch what the creature does. In the footage that had become very still, its form had stabilized. It almost looked calm. It is testing the pattern, realized. It is learning the routine. Yes, but not to escape. Watch its orientation. It is always facing the same direction. Toward what? Smiled despite his exhaustion. Toward the nearest exit that leads to open space. It wants to leave. It has been trying to figure out how to leave without fighting. Sat back in her chair, processing this information. You are telling me that this creature, this Class 14 predator that has killed thousands, just wants to go home. I am telling you that we have been looking at this all wrong. The Council sees a monster. I see a lost animal that has been attacked and hurt and trapped far from anything it understands. Rubbed his tired eyes. On Earth, when an animal is cornered and frightened, what does it do? It fights, answered immediately. It attacks anything that comes close. It becomes more dangerous than ever. And what do we do when we need to help such an animal? Was quiet for a moment, then she understood. We do not attack it more, we give it space. We show it that we are not threats. We build trust slowly. Exactly. Turned to face her directly. For the past 3 days, I have been doing something the Council does not know about. I have been broadcasting to the creature. Broadcasting. Humans communicate in ways that alien translators cannot detect. Small sounds below normal hearing. Chemical signals in our sweat. Tiny movements in our faces and bodies. Stood and walked to the window overlooking the containment bay. Through the observation glass, I have been sending a message. The same message, over and over again. What message? That I am not a threat. That I am not going to hurt it. That I want to help. Joined him at the window. Below them, the drifted in its containment field. It seemed somehow less chaotic than before, less frantic. Do you think it received your message? She asked. I know it did, pointed at the wall nearest to their observation room. See that section of the barrier? Yesterday, the creature stopped trying to break through it. It stopped attacking that specific wall. Every other wall it still tests, but not that one. Stared at the creature with new understanding. It knows you are there. It knows you are different. It is waiting for me, said quietly. It is waiting to see what I will do next. And what will you do next? Turned to face her. His expression was calm but determined. I am going to ask the Council to lower all containment barriers. I am going to enter the bay alone. And I am going to walk up to a Class 14 predator and have a conversation. Was silent for a long moment. Then she laughed, a short, sharp sound. You know, when you sent me that message asking for help, I thought you had found something interesting. I did not expect this. Will you help me? Of course I will help you. She shook her head in amazement. Someone has to watch you do something incredibly stupid and document it for science. Smiled, that is the spirit. Together they looked down at the creature that had terrified an entire galaxy, the nightmare that had destroyed fleets and eaten a black hole. Tomorrow would try to make it a friend. It was either the bravest thing anyone had ever attempted or the most foolish, probably both. But as watched the creature slowly stabilize its form, he felt something unexpected. Hope. The Galactic Council called it madness. Admiral Telos called it a death sentence. General called it several things in his native language that the translator refused to process, words so harsh that the machine simply made a beeping sound instead. But Ancient and Patient simply asked one question: "What do you need?" Park's list was short. It was also completely unprecedented in galactic history. No one had ever asked for such things before. First, lower all containment fields to the minimum possible level. Second, remove all armed guards from the containment bay. Third, give him unsupervised access to the creature. Fourth, wait and see what happens. "You will die within seconds," Admiral Telos insisted. His antennae were shaking with stress. "The moment those barriers drop, it will consume you." "Possibly," agreed calmly, "but I do not think so." "Why are you so certain?" "I am not certain. I am hopeful." Looked at the holographic image of the floating above the council table. "I have been communicating with this creature for 3 days now. It knows I am different from the others. It knows I have not attacked it." "Communicating," General made a harsh laughing sound. "It is a mindless beast. It does not understand communication." "Everything with a mind understands communication," replied patiently. "The question is whether we are smart enough to figure out how to communicate with it. Humans talk with our voices, but we also talk with our bodies, with our faces, with tiny sounds and signals that we do not even notice ourselves. I have been using all of these methods." "And you believe the creature understands?" "I believe the creature is trying to understand, just as I am trying to understand it." Stood. "On Earth, we have spent thousands of years learning to live with dangerous predators. We have tamed wolves and turned them into dogs. We have trained horses that could easily kill us. We have swum with sharks and walked among lions. Not because we are stronger than these creatures. We are not, but because we learned their languages." The council chamber fell silent. Every alien species was listening now, fascinated despite their fear. "The is scared," continued. "It is far from home, surrounded by creatures it does not understand, trapped in a prison of pain and light. Every time it tries to escape, you hurt it more. Every time it defends itself, you attack it harder. It has no choice but to fight. You have given it no other option." "What other option could there be?" Admiral Telos asked. "It is a Class 14 predator." "The other option is trust," smiled gently. "Show it that not everyone wants to hurt it. Show it that there is a way out that does not require violence. Give it a reason to be peaceful." His crystalline body chimed softly. "You truly believe this could work?" "I believe it is worth trying. What do you have to lose? If I am wrong, you lose one human. If I am right, you gain something far more valuable than any weapon or containment system." "And what is that?" "Understanding." Insisted on being nearby during the attempt. She would stay in the adjacent observation room, monitoring everything through sensors that, hopefully, the could not detect. "If something goes wrong, I want you to record everything," told her before he entered the containment bay. "Every detail could be important." "If something goes wrong, you will be dead," pointed out. "Yes, but my death could still teach us something useful." He smiled at her worried expression. "Do not look so concerned. I have a good feeling about this." "Your good feelings are going to get you killed one day." "Perhaps, but not today." The containment bay was eerily quiet when entered. The guards had been removed, though he knew they were watching from hidden positions, ready to act if everything went wrong. The energy barriers had been lowered to their minimum settings, just enough to keep the in place but not enough to cause it pain. The creature noticed him immediately. It shifted at his approach. Its form rippled and changed. Teeth emerged from shadows, then disappeared. Eyes opened in places where eyes should not be, staring at him with something that might have been curiosity or might have been hunger. Did not run. He did not show fear. Instead, he walked calmly to a spot about 20 meters from the creature and sat down on the cold metal floor. Then he did something that made every watching alien question human sanity. He closed his eyes. Minutes passed, the circled within its weakened containment field testing the reduced barriers. Occasionally it would surge toward, stopping just short of where he sat. Each time remained still. He did not flinch. He did not move. He kept his breathing slow and steady. He kept his heartbeat calm. In the observation room, watched with her heart pounding. The biosensors showed vital signs. He was afraid, she could see that in his elevated stress hormones. But he was controlling it. He was not letting his fear control him. They made a sound. It was not a sound that could be heard with ears. It was a sound that resonated in dimensions humans could not perceive, but somehow seemed to notice it. His head tilted slightly, as if listening. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "You are a long way from home, are you not?" The went still. "I know what that feels like," continued softly. "Being somewhere that does not make sense, where everything is strange and hostile, where you do not understand the rules and nobody understands you." The creature's form began to stabilize. The constant shifting slowed down. For the first time since its capture, it was not thrashing against its prison. "They are scared of you, that is why they attack. They do not understand you, so they fear you. Fear makes people do cruel things." Opened his eyes slowly. "I am not going to hurt you. I could not hurt you even if I wanted to. We both know that. You could destroy me in less than a heartbeat." They made another resonant sound, lower this time, softer. "But I do not think you want to destroy me. I think you want to leave. I think you want to go back to wherever you came from, to the spaces between stars where you belong." His voice remained gentle, soothing. "I can help you with that. I can show you the way out, if you want." In the observation room, stared at the biosensors with growing amazement. This energy output was decreasing. Its dimensional fluctuations were stabilizing. The creature was, against all known science, calming down. "Impossible," she whispered to herself. "This is impossible." But she kept watching, and she kept recording. Slowly rose to his feet. Every movement was deliberate, careful, non-threatening. "I am going to stand up now, and I am going to walk toward that door." He pointed to the exit at the far end of the bay. "You can follow me or you can stay here. It is your choice. I will not force you." He turned his back on a creature that had killed 8,000 beings. He turned his back on a nightmare that had eaten a black hole, and he began to walk toward the exit. Behind him, the containment fields flickered. Then they died completely. Whether this happened by design or by the creature's will, no one could say. But suddenly, there was nothing between Park and the most dangerous predator in the known universe. He kept walking, slow, steady, one foot in front of the other. And the followed. It did not attack. It did not consume. It simply drifted behind him like a shadow, like a lost animal following someone it had decided to trust. In the observation room, covered her mouth with her hand. Tears were forming in her eyes, though she did not know why. "He did it," she whispered. "The crazy fool actually did it." Walked toward the exit with death itself floating behind him. And for the first time in weeks, the Galactic Council's flagship was completely silent. No alarms, no warnings, no screams. Just a human and a nightmare, walking together toward freedom. The journey from the containment bay to the ship's external hangar was exactly 1.7 kilometers. Every meter of that distance was lined with armed guards. Every meter had emergency barriers ready to activate at a moment's notice. Every meter was watched by weapons powerful enough to destroy small moons. And every meter was being observed by the entire Galactic Council, by military commanders from 100 worlds, by scientists and scholars who could not believe what they were seeing. Park walked calmly through all of it. Behind him, floating like a shadow made of nightmares, came the most dangerous predator in known space. The first checkpoint they reached was staffed by 6 guards from 3 different species. All of them had their weapons raised. All of them were shaking with fear. One of them, a large reptilian soldier, looked like he might faint at any moment. Nodded politely at them as he passed. "Good morning. Please do not shoot. It would not help anyway." The guards did not shoot. They were too scared to even move. Caught up with at the second checkpoint. She had left the observation room and was now walking beside him, her eyes constantly checking on the behind them. "It is following you," she said quietly. "I know. A Class 14 predator is following you like a lost puppy." "I am aware of that, yes." "How is this possible?" Kept walking, his pace steady and unhurried. "The same way you get a scared dog to trust you, patience, consistency, showing them that you are not a threat, showing them that you understand." "Dogs do not exist between dimensions," pointed out. "Dogs do not eat black holes." "The principle is the same. Fear is fear no matter what species you are. Loneliness is loneliness. Pain is pain." Glanced back at the. It had settled into a more stable form now, still terrifying, still wrong to look at, but somehow quieter, more peaceful. Every creature wants to feel safe, even the monsters, especially the monsters. They passed another group of guards. These ones had slightly better composure, though noticed that several of them had closed their eyes rather than look directly at the. "Where did you learn this?" asked. "Not from any textbook I have read." "My grandmother kept bees when I was young," said. "I was terrified of them at first. I thought they would sting me. I would run away whenever I saw one, but my grandmother taught me to be calm around them, to move slowly, to not fear them." He smiled at the memory. "She told me that bees can sense fear, that if you are afraid, they become afraid too, and afraid creatures sting." "So you treat a Class 14 predator the same way you would treat a bee?" "I treat every creature the same way, with respect, with patience, with the understanding that they are just trying to survive just like me." They reached the midpoint of their journey, a large open area where dozens of alien species had gathered to watch. News of what was happening had spread throughout the ship. Everyone wanted to see the impossible. Admiral Telos was waiting for them there. His compound eyes reflected the shifting form. His antennae were trembling, but he stood his ground. "Human Park," he said formally. "I must admit, I did not believe you would survive this long." "Neither did I honestly." Stopped walking for a moment. Behind him the stopped too. It was matching his movements, following his lead. "But here we are." "Here we are," the Admiral agreed. "What happens now?" "Now we continue to the hangar. We open the doors, and we let the creature leave." "Just like that. We simply release a Class 14 predator back into the universe." "Yes." Looked at the. "It does not belong here. It was never trying to attack your civilization. It was lost, confused, scared. You captured it and hurt it, and it defended itself. That is all." Admiral Telos was quiet for a long moment. Around them, the gathered aliens watched in complete silence. No one moved. No one spoke. "And if you are wrong," the Admiral finally asked, "what if it decides to destroy us all the moment it is free?" "Then it will destroy us all," said simply. "But I do not believe that will happen. I believe it wants the same thing we all want, to be free, to go home, to be left in peace." "You believe, you do not know." "Nobody knows anything for certain, Admiral. We can only believe and hope and try our best." Started walking again. "Now, if you will excuse me, I have a guest to escort to the exit." The hangar bay was enormous. It was designed to hold hundreds of smaller ships, to launch entire fleets into battle. Now it was empty except for, and of course, the thousands of aliens watching from observation decks and through holographic displays across the ship. Admiral Telos stood at the control panel that would open the massive hangar doors. His claws hovered over the activation switch. Beyond those doors lay open space, the endless void, freedom. "The doors will take 90 seconds to fully open," Admiral Telos announced. His voice echoed in the huge empty space. In that time, the creature could kill everyone on this ship. It will not, said. How can you be certain? Turned to look at the creature had stopped moving. Its form had become almost completely still, and for a moment something passed between them, not words, not thoughts, something deeper, something that existed in the spaces between understanding. Trust. Because I asked nicely, said. Admiral Telos made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. Then he pressed the switch. The hangar doors began to open, slowly, painfully slowly. Beyond them, stars began to appear, the infinite blackness of space, the home that they had been torn from. The creature did not rush toward freedom. It did not surge forward with desperate hunger. Instead, it waited. It watched the doors open. It watched the stars appear. Then it turned. Every sensor in the hangar spiked with alarm. Guards raised weapons. Emergency barriers began to activate. But there was not attacking, it was looking at. It extended something toward him, a tendril, a limb, a piece of itself, something that existed in dimensions humans could not see. Grabbed his arm. What is it doing? I think, said slowly, it is saying goodbye. He raised his hand. They could not truly touch. The dimensional difference made real contact impossible. But for a moment, they hovered there, two impossibly different beings sharing a moment of connection. The human who had whispered to a nightmare. The nightmare who had listened. Then its tendril. It turned toward the open doors, toward the stars, toward home. And it was gone. Not with violence, not with destruction. It simply flowed out into space like water flowing downhill, like a bird taking flight, like something finally free after too long in a cage. The hangar was silent. Lowered his hand slowly. He was shaking, he realized. His whole body was trembling. The stress of the past hour was finally catching up with him. Was crying, she did not know why. She was a scientist. She studied animal behavior. She was supposed to be objective and analytical, but she was crying anyway. You did it, she whispered. You actually did it. We did it, corrected. I could not have done this alone. Behind them, Admiral Telos stood frozen at the control panel. His antennae were completely still. His compound eyes were fixed on the spot where they had disappeared. In all my years, he said finally, his voice barely audible, I have never seen anything like this. A Class 14 predator, released without violence, because a human asked nicely. Turn to face him. Maybe that is the lesson, Admiral. Maybe asking nicely should always be the first option, not the last. The Admiral said nothing, but his antennae drooped in a way that, had learned, indicated deep thought. Around the ship, thousands of aliens stood in silence. They had witnessed the impossible. They had seen a human do what no weapon could do, what no technology could accomplish. They had seen kindness defeat fear. And the universe would never be quite the same. The Galactic Council called an emergency, meeting 3 hours after they disappeared into the stars. Park sat in the center of the council chamber. He was surrounded by holographic images of representatives from 37 different species. They floated around him in a circle, their alien faces showing emotions he could not always read. Some looked curious. Some looked confused. Some looked angry. A few looked like they had just witnessed a miracle and were not sure how to feel about it. Questions came from every direction. How did you know the creature would follow you? I did not know, answered honestly. I hoped, I believed, but I did not know for certain. What if it had attacked? Then I would have died, but it did not attack because I did not give it a reason to. This defies everything we understand about Class 14 predators. Then perhaps your understanding was incomplete. General, the reptilian warrior, leaned forward in his holographic display. You make it sound simple, but we have fought these creatures for centuries. We have developed weapons, strategies, containment systems. Are you saying all of that was wrong? I am saying that all of that was one approach, and it did not work, kept his voice calm and respectful. Humans have a different approach, not better necessarily, just different, and in this case different was what we needed. Raised a crystalline appendage for silence. The chamber quieted immediately. She was old enough and respected enough that everyone listened when she spoke. Human Park, you achieved in 3 days what our combined civilizations could not accomplish in centuries. You communicated with, calmed, and released a creature we believed was beyond all understanding. Her crystalline form chimed softly. I must ask you directly, how did you do this? Was quiet for a moment. Beside him, waited with curiosity. She had been asked to attend the council meeting as well, to provide scientific observation of what had happened. Finally spoke. On Earth we have a saying, every creature speaks, few bother to listen. He stood up, addressing the council directly. Humans have spent thousands of years learning to understand other species, not through force, not through weapons, through observation, through patience, through the simple act of paying attention. He began to walk slowly around the chamber, meeting as many holographic eyes as he could. You classified thee as a predator, Class 14, the second highest danger rating in your system, and because of that classification you approached it with weapons, with containment, with fear. He shook his head. But classifications are not creatures, labels are not truth. That being out there was not hunting your civilization. It was lost. It was scared. It was far from anything it understood. You suggest we should have simply talked to it. Admiral Telas's voice was still thick with disbelief. I suggest that maybe, just maybe, the first response to something you do not understand should not be violence. Stopped walking and faced the Admiral directly. Humans are not the strongest species in the galaxy. We are not the fastest. We are not the most technologically advanced. But we learned something important a very long time ago. And what is that? Asked. That the universe is too big and too strange to meet with hostility alone. There will always be something bigger than us, something stronger, something we cannot fight, smiled gently. So we learn to make friends instead of enemies. We learn to understand instead of destroy. We learn that sometimes the most powerful weapon is not a weapon at all. General made a sound of frustration. And what of truly dangerous creatures, those that genuinely mean harm? Do we simply ask them to be nice? Those exist too, and sometimes violence is necessary. The expression became more serious. I am not saying we should never fight. I am saying that fighting should be the last choice, not the first. The spent weeks in your containment, fighting for its life against enemies that would not stop attacking. All it wanted was to leave. All it needed was someone to show it the door. The council chamber fell silent. The representatives looked at each other, processing what they had heard. Finally spoke again. Human Park, human. The council will need time to discuss what we have witnessed today, but I believe I speak for many when I say that we have learned something valuable, something that may change how we approach the unknown in the future. That is all I could ask for, said. 3 months later, was back on Earth. He was back in his small apartment in Seoul, back to feeding his cat Machi, back to complaining about grant applications and department meetings. His life had returned to something like normal. But things had changed. The Galactic Council had established a new department called the Initiative. It was staffed primarily by humans, specialists in animal behavior and communication, who were now being asked to help with first contact situations across the galaxy. First contact protocols were being completely rewritten. The old rules that focused on containment and weapons were being replaced with new guidelines that emphasized observation, patience, and communication. And most importantly, the classification system for alien life forms had been updated. Threat ratings now included behavioral assessments. Scientists were required to study a creature's communication patterns before any containment decisions were made. had published her research 6 months after returning to Earth. Her paper was titled Communication Patterns in Extradimensional Entities, a Human Approach. It became required reading at 17 different galactic academies. Scientists from dozens of species requested copies. It was translated into over 200 alien languages. Her conclusion was simple but powerful. The universe is not divided into predator and prey, threat and ally, monster and friend. Every creature exists in context, shaped by its experiences and driven by needs that may seem alien but are often surprisingly familiar. Humanity's greatest gift to the galactic community may not be our technology or our resources. It may be our stubborn insistence on asking one simple question before reaching for weapons. What does it want? Sometimes the answer is surprising. Sometimes all it takes is a whisper. Read the paper on a quiet evening, with Machi purring on his lap and a cup of tea growing cold on the table beside him. Outside his window, the stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Sometimes, when the night was quiet and the stars were bright, he would look up and wonder about He wondered where it had gone. He wondered if it had found its way home. He wondered if it remembered him. He liked to think it did. Somewhere out there in the vast dark spaces between galaxies, a creature drifted through dimensions that humans could not see. It was home now, safe, free. And deep within its incomprehensible consciousness, something remained. A memory, a feeling, the echo of a whisper. A human had spoken to it with kindness when everyone else spoke with weapons. A human had offered trust when everyone else offered only pain. A human had walked with it toward freedom when everyone else had tried to cage it forever. They did not understand humans. It could not comprehend their strange, small forms or their confusing biological processes, but it understood something important. Kindness was a language that needed no translation. And somewhere on a small blue planet, I was looking at the stars and smiling. The universe was vast and strange and full of terrors, but it was also full of possibilities, full of connections waiting to be made, full of creatures waiting to be understood. All it took was the courage to try. All it took was a whisper,